6:30, I would like to call the Rockdale County Board of Education special call meeting to order. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as presented? A motion to approve the agenda has been made by Ms. Heather Duncan and second by Ms. Janie Jones. Is there any discussion? All in favor? A 7-0 vote. The next item on the agenda is Superintendent Cabinet Update. Ms. Chesser, please introduce your cabinet.
Thank you, Madam Chair Jackson-Led, and good evening again, Vice Chairwoman Jones, board members, cabinet members, and our guests that are here this evening. We have two superintendent cabinet updates tonight, and we'll begin with our Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Joycelyn Smith.
Good evening, Madam Chair Jackson-Led, Vice Chair Jones, remaining board members, Superintendent Chesser, Cabinet, and guests. Sorry, this is going to be redundant, but I'll repeat. For one, I want to remind everyone that our final hearing will be Monday, August 18th at 6 p.m. So this year we took a new approach to our budgeting process. We used something called zero-based budgeting, which means we started from scratch. We asked our district leaders to add back only the costs that are absolutely necessary, take a hard look at which programs are working, and cut out things that do not add value or support the district's priorities. Our superintendent challenged us to dig deep and make tough choices. As a result, we reduced staff at the central office through reassignments, and we look for ways to be more efficient with less in our schools. The budget for fiscal year 2026 was officially adopted on June 26th. Today, our objective is to propose a millage rate that will fund the local revenue portion of this budget. If you look at the last 5 years of the Gross Digest, you'll see it's gone up a lot. It has almost doubled since 2020. The digest is basically the total value of all taxable properties in the county. In what your taxes are based on. It's what your taxes are based on, These values are set by looking at recent property sales in the area. It's important to know that Rockdale County Public Schools does not control this process. Now, even as property values have increased, Rockdale County Public Schools has worked to ease the impact on taxpayers by lowering the millage rate. In fact, since 2017, we reduced the rate by 5.32 mills, which has meant millions in savings for the taxpayer. In 2021, the district took the rollback rate, and we've continued to keep the rate low. The proposed rate for 2025 is 20 mills. Same as last year, no increase. The rollback rate is 19.545. At 20 mills, we are 0.55 mills less than the rollback. Rolling back to 19.54 mills would reduce our estimated revenues by $2.3 million, and our forecasted deficit would go from 4.8 to 7.1, taken from our fund balance, 7.1 million. For a homesteaded property, homesteaded property valued at $350,000, the savings would be $31.25 annually, and $35 for a non-homestead property. Also, earlier this year, the board voted to opt into House Bill 581, making Rockdale County Public Schools one of the few districts to do so. Thanks to this move, taxpayers will save over $150 million this year. If your property received a homestead exemption in 2024, you should not see a tax increase in school taxes in 2025. Your property will be taxed at the same assessed value as last year. No inflation adjustment. However, if your property didn't receive the exemption, you may see an increase in assessed value. Between commercial properties and new growth in the area, this millage rate will still generate 2.3% of additional revenue for our schools, helping us to continue to serve students and families effectively. Because the board chose to opt into House Bill 581 and also raised the senior tax exemption to $50,000 in 2023, we have seen a huge increase in taxpayer exemptions. That means less money coming from local taxes to the district and more money staying in taxpayers' pockets. As you see, exemptions have almost doubled since 2017 and are now $1 billion, over $1 billion. Now, you might be thinking, I haven't seen it, but Rockdale County Public Schools and its board have made decisions that have lowered the amount taxpayers would have paid in their taxes. This graph shows the increase in assessed values. The green portion represents the prior year digest amount, and the yellow is the increase in reassessed values of those properties. Together, they show how much property values have grown. But the good news is in 2025, we're starting to see things level off. The increases aren't as steep as they were before. As home values go up and our overall tax digest grows, we actually get less from the state. Take a look at the pie chart shown. In 2019, about 34% of our budget came from local taxes. This year, that number is up to 48%. That means Rockdale is having to rely more on local funding to support our schools. Here, you'll see a comparison of other districts and their 2024 versus their 2025 budgets. Each of the 12 districts listed has an increase in budget. The average increase is 5.5%. Rockdale's increase is slightly lower at 4.5%. This shows that while we're increasing our budget, we're doing so carefully and responsibly and are in line with other districts that are also experiencing mandated increases. It's also important to note that many of these other districts have more commercial businesses, which bring in more tax dollars. That means less of the tax burden falls on the homeowners. In Rockdale, we rely more on residential properties, which makes our budgeting even more challenging. Like you, the district has seen higher costs in just about everything from supplies to utilities. Additionally, our students' needs have changed, and we've had to invest more in things like school safety, mental health and emotional support, and special education services. We're also dealing with mandated increases from the state. From the chart, you'll see that we've had increases in health insurance. Our certified health insurance has gone from $1,760 per person per month to $1,885 per person per month. This equates to $22,620 per person annually, for a total impact to our budget of $1.8 million. The employer share of the classified has also increased. It's gone from $1,580 per member per month to $1,885. Again, $22,620 per person, for a total of $2.4 million impact to our budget. The $22,620, just to say, is more than some of our staff makes. So we pay more in benefits for them than they actually make, unfortunately. We also are seeing an increase in our teachers' retirement. The employer portion is going from 20.78% of a person's salary to 21.91% of a person's salary. This is the amount that we have to pay as the employer towards their teacher's retirement. An example of how much this costs to us is if we take a person that makes $50,000, the contribution from the district is just under $11,000 for that employee. That impact is $1.38 million to our budget, for a total increase of approximately $5.6 million of mandated increases for the FY26 year. With all these rising costs, keeping the budget the same would have meant cutting back on things our students truly need. And we're at our final slide, and it's just a graph of a chart of teachers, starting teacher salaries in surrounding districts. Rockdale County Public Schools is paying $51,212 to its teachers, a starting T4 teacher. and you see where we fall in that lineup. Just wanted to show you this because I think it's important that we know that, we have to invest in our teachers as well. And teacher shortage across the state, it's more than ever that we have to be competitive with other districts. And we like to attract and keep great teachers. So we'll have to think about this impact on our budget in future budgets. That concludes my presentation. Oh, there's one more thing. Got to bring it. The FY26 budget, millage rate adoption. Recommendation. The superintendent will recommend that the Rockdale County Board of Education adopt the millage rate of 20 mills for the 25-26 fiscal year. Rationale, each year the board is responsible for adopting a millage rate to be used to collect local property taxes needed by the school system to meet their budgetary requirements. Attached for review is the 5-year digest. That concludes our presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. And next up, we have our Chief Human Resources Officer, Mrs. Michelle Smith. Michelle Stevens, excuse me.
Good evening, Madam Chair Jackson-Lett, Vice Chair Jones, board members, Superintendent Chesser, cabinet and guests. Tonight we are here, I'm here to talk to you all about, sorry, I'm having trouble with putting this back. I blame Ms. Smith. Okay. So tonight I'm being joined by Nick Pappas and Kristen Smith. They are with Cannon Financial Strategists. And they are working with us because Cannon manages our retirement plans, and our current record keeper, our retirement plan record keeper is Lincoln. Lincoln has recently recommended some changes to our contract, which prompted Cannon to do a thorough evaluation of our record keeper services. And so they're going to talk through just the different things that they discovered when reviewing and evaluating our record keeping. And then I'll make a recommendation. So if Kristen and Nick can join us, or join me rather.
Good evening, board. My name is Kristen Smith, Nick Pappas, as she said, and Kelly Dixon sends his regards. It is his 7-year-old's birthday today, and he did not want to chance it at home by not staying home for that birthday party. So we've come in his place, and I know most of you have met us and had various discussions over this. So I'm going to walk through all of these slides. Please feel free to ask questions as we go through, because I do know, Vice Chair Ms. Jones, you have not seen this, so feel free to ask any questions. And if anything else has come up for any of you that after you've looked at the slides that you have any questions going through. So as Michelle mentioned, in mid-May, Lincoln came to Cannon as the plan consultants and managers of the plan and said, we would like to change the pricing on Rockdale's plan for your participants. And to be clear, these are all expenses that your employees are paying. This is not, school system paid expenses, but being as Cannon has had a relationship with the school for 20 years, we are very vested in what your employees pay and the kind of benefits they have. So when Lincoln came to us and said, during in the middle of a 5-year contract, we would like to change some of these things. It just warranted us going and doing a deep dive to make sure that you had the best plan out there. And so what we did is we actually went through, I'm going to show you on the first slide that you get to past the agenda is the Lincoln proposal. So Lincoln came and said, we would like to change the pricing on 2 things. So it's important to understand how a retirement plan functions is you have 2 contracts inside that plan. You have what the fixed account is paying to your employees that choose to be in that fixed account. And then you also have a contract for the record keeping services of how much they're charging to actually do the physical work of statements and those type of things. And so Lincoln came and had changes to both of those contracts. They said, instead of having what you call a index rate for the fixed, we want to go to a declared rate. And what that means to your participants is when we negotiated this contract 3 years ago, we said to Lincoln, we don't want you to be able to pick whatever the interest rate you decide to pay. We want it tied to a true index. And so it was tied to an index called the SIMI, which just stands for the Stable Income Market Index. And so the way that that worked is Lincoln didn't really get a choice. As the index moves, so does the interest rate. Lincoln came back and said, we would like this to be a declared rate. And what that basically means is we get to tell you what we're going to pay on that interest. And so they were going from, at the time, it was 3.89 in May. It has now risen to 3.92. So they wanted to go from whatever that index was down to 2.3% that your participants would earn in that. Then they also came in and said, we want to do some pretty fairly substantial changes to the revenue pricing and say, you know, we want to go from $10 a head to $15 a head and change the wrap fees, the costs on top of that. And so what you've got at the end of this slide is the difference to your employees for the year. So it was going to net around $1.1 million loss in the fixed earnings to the employees and about an extra $176,000 in record keeping services. The 176 is not an unfair number. It was that we wanted to make sure that there were not better products for that record keeping fee and that the fixed rate was as absolutely competitive, because as you know, it is a Social Security opt-out plan, which means you have a lot of employees that have fixed dollars inside the plan, and we want to make sure they're getting as much money as possible off of that. So the next thing we did is we went out to other record keepers in the industry, and we actually ended up going to 10 full record keepers and pricing all of their fixed accounts, what their record keeping costs would be to the employees. And we also went in and said, what's the history of your fixed accounts? Because a lot of these companies, the way that they work it, because they're a declared rate, a majority of them do a declared rate, they can pick and choose that fixed rate. And so they may be pitching a fixed rate now that historically they have not actually provided because they're trying to get business to come in. So we went to TIA, Fidelity, Principal, Transamerica, The Standard, Nationwide, Empower, Voya, Schwab, and John Hancock, some of which came back and declined to quote for various reasons. They're not in the 403 business, or they're moving from the 403 business, or they just chose not to be a Social Security opt-out plan, different things. But we did get about 7 responses back. And they're here on this slide and the following slide. I'm happy to answer any questions, but what I want to point out are the basics of the fixed account. You've got anything from Principals, a very good example. They actually came in fairly high at a 4.95. However, when we asked them for their historical rates, they were in the 2s and 1s in those cases. So they look good on the front end, but when you really dug into historically how they looked, they fell a little bit short. After reviewing all of these, we really came up with TIA, which stands for the Teachers Insurance and Annuity of America plan, founded in 1908, I believe, by yes. See, he needs to be speaking. That plan was formed for teachers. It is a plan that is a nonprofit. And the important part of that nonprofit stance is that it was founded to assist teachers and to give it all back to teachers, meaning there are no shareholders that they're dependent on paying in the end. And so any profits that TIA comes up with after their year is out, they pay it back into their fixed rates to their shareholders are their fixed account owners in that regard. And so for that reason, their fixed rates are very high and have historically been high. It's not like they shift up to get you in and then shift down. So we went through and researched all of their rates historically on those things. And we also came in and did the pricing revenue per head of what they have. And so you'll see TIA on the far left of that first slide. They came in at their 5.5 illiquid, and I'll explain that. It's actually an account that your employees can get into that is more of a retirement focus, meaning you can't just pull your money very, very quickly. It's a 7-year to pull that money out of the fixed. But the liquid is at 4.75, which is still substantially higher than the other rate was. And all of your employees would be put into that liquid account initially, and then it would just be their option if they wanted to do the illiquid. Going down through this, you can see that they basically came in at $40 a head. Ms. Chesser, you'll be Pleased to know that that has actually been reduced to $38 a head for the employees' cost for the record-keeping services in there. So if you go to the fourth slide, or I guess that's the sixth slide, we did a comparison of the proposal that Lincoln made for their services to TIA's proposal, and side by side. And so you've got the fixed account balance that currently sits at Rockdale is $69 million that your employees have in there. If you go to the declared rate of 2.6%, that's going to come to about $1.6 million of interest income to your employees in the year. If you go to the liquid TIA, again, which is where most of your employees will initially be transferred to, so it's the most relevant of these two, that comes to $1.7 million. That is that comes to $3.3 million, a difference of $1.7 million to your employees. If you take that and just do a division by 7,000 employees, which is a very rough number, you're talking about an extra $250 a year in interest. If everybody, and you have a lot of people that they have accumulated very high balances over the years, that can be very substantial for your employees getting ready to retire.
Just a quick note, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The vast majority of people that are in this fixed account are the retired people. And so we talk about fixed income or living on a fixed income. Having access to a much higher interest rate is going to generate more revenue for them to be able to pay these additional expenses that we're all feeling. So to me, the fixed is the biggest piece of this whole puzzle. And that's why we're kind of harping on this fixed rate and why it's so valuable, because you do have an enormous amount of people that are retirees that are getting their TRS pension or their PSCRS pension, but they're also supplementing that income each month by systematic withdrawals coming from this plan. And so the higher that we can make this rate, the more beneficial it is for them. And so that's why we're spending so much time on this fixed account. So just to clarify.
As you can tell, Nick is the actual advisor to your plan participants, and he is very passionate about getting them the very best rates that he can find them, because he gets to sit across from them and, and make their day, hopefully. So what Nick just said leads us to the slide number 7, which is a comparison of the actual rates and what it can mean over time to your participants. And so on the left, you've got the actual crediting rates. The solid red at the bottom is the 2.3 that Lincoln is suggesting that they go to. You've got the 4.75 in blue, which is the liquid rate that all majority of your employees would go into. And then you've got the dotted line across, which is where Rockdale employees have been with the semi for all those years, because they were locked in for 3% for several years. Then they went to the semi, which is when you start to see the differentiation. Yes, that word, on the dotted line. And so what we want to show is that TIA has been looked at historically over time as an option for the plan. However, the last time we renegotiated this contract with Lincoln, rates had come down so far because of COVID and the 0%. It just didn't make a lot of sense at that point to go to TIA, because Lincoln had an artificially inflated rate that you guys had been locked into that Cannon managed to hold them to until now. So it's actually, you go over to the right and you're going to see just kind of an example of, you took $100,000, just so we can kind of quantify it for everybody, and you put it in those 3 different rates, the liquid, the illiquid, and then the 2.3 that Lincoln's suggesting we go to. And you can see the difference to an employee over 10 years. That can be the equivalent of a car, basically, that they can get on that kind of interest difference over time. So again, to Nick's point, that's why we keep talking about this fixed benefit to your employees. The last slide I will show you is just basically the creditworthiness of TIA. TIA actually has a higher credit rating than the U.S. government right now. So I say that only to point out they are very, very solvent. They are one of the top in the industry as far as credit rating. They are very well known, backed by all of their capital base in the account. And so we have no concerns about standing behind, your employees using TIA as a record keeper going forward. Service provider. Any questions?
Ms. Jones?
Well, what I will do is kind of fine tune my questions
Okay.
and just submit them to Superintendent Chesser. And then she will submit them to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so here's the action item for this presentation. The recommendation is that Superintendent Chesser will recommend the Board of Education approve the transition of the retirement plan record keeper from Lincoln Financial Group to Teachers Insurance Annuity Association. This is contingent upon the contract being approved by Superintendent Chesser and General Counsel. The rationale is as follows. After a review of record-keeping services, TIAA stands out as a superior service to that of Lincoln Financial Group. TIA's mission of serving teachers through its nonprofit structure, its top in the industry financial strength, along with enhancements to their service model over the years, has now made TIA an appropriate choice to serve as RCPS's record keeper. The approval of this transition will continue to give RCPS personnel a retirement plan with a robust menu of investments and advisory services, while adding a fixed investment with historically higher yields due to the nonprofit structure of TIA. This supports the RCPS strategic plan by continuing to provide our employees a competitive and valuable retirement plan served by best-in-class vendors. The financial impact is neutral because it doesn't impact the school system, but it should be noted that the participants can go in and make changes, and that will vary based on the individual. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, that concludes our presentations for this evening.
Thank you all. The Cabinet has presented an overview of action items listed under new business. The FY26 millage rate adoption action item will be voted on during a special call meeting scheduled on August 18th at 6:30 p.m. in the boardroom. The Teachers Insurance Annuity Association action will be voted on during a work session on August 14th at 6 p.m. also here in the boardroom. Both items will be addressed on the new business discussion agenda. With no further discussion, no further business to discuss, do I hear a motion to conclude the meeting? A motion to conclude the meeting has been made by Ms. Heather Duncan and second by Ms. Janie Jones. Is there any discussion? All in favor? The meeting is concluded at 6:57 with the 7-0 vote. Have a good night. See you next week.